Hey folks, welcome. It's another Thursday night, and that means another Confederate Minute by Isenhour Speaks. And this is actually going to be kind of a part two of our last week's talk about George Moses Horton. So bear with me for a moment. We're going to kind of, before we get back to some of that interesting stuff, I'm going to talk a little bit about this recent election. If you remember a couple of weeks ago, I chided a lot of you for getting out to vote. Well, apparently we didn't have enough of our folks going out to vote because we did suffer in the House and in the Senate. Now, with all the stuff I have been reading on Facebook and all the negativity, I'm tired of it because I can't even explain how stupid it is. If you are in God's will, if you are doing God's will, if you're here for the long run, you're going to have setbacks. But it doesn't matter because God is with us. So all this negativity about, oh, we got to move out of Virginia, oh, we got to do this, stop it. Just stop it. You're either a warrior or you're not. And if you're not a warrior, then okay, get out of the way. Let us warriors go forward, because I'm tired of this negativity nonsense. Yeah, we lost an election. Big whoop. We've kind of lost a lot of elections along the way. That doesn't stop the momentum of the heritage movement. We still have to go forward. And yes, we will have more obstacles, but God is with us. So what obstacles cannot be overcome with God? All obstacles can become. And a little lesson to the liberals here, now that you're tuning in right now. I know y'all laughing with glee. Ah, ha, ha, ha. We're going to do all this. We're going to do all that. You know, your arrogance is your undoing. And as long as you continue to do ungodly things, it will always be your undoing. So you liberals can laugh right now, but I've got a feeling you'll be crying in the future. So don't take it too hard, but you're gonna lose. It's just that simple. You're gonna lose, and so enjoy his time right now. Anyway, now we're going to do George Moses Horton. Again, last week we talked about how we think that this man truly was a great Southerner, and he was also one that people should know about. But in doing a lot of studying this week about old Moses, I have to say, liberals are very confused about this fellow. They seem to jump around in his story, kind of like, and it was just like there's only a little bit of story there, so they kind of embellish it, just keep creating this myth about this man. So I think that a lot about what we know about George is that the liberals have played him up over the years, particularly in Carolina. I'm talking about UNC up there at Chapel Hill. Now, I just want to mention something. I'll go over real quickly something that we did last week, to where he was a poet, a Southern poet. And then we talked about the war years. At the end of the war, when the Sherman's troops came through Carolina on the way to Bentonville, they did come through Chatham. And as a result, Horton hooked up with them. And we don't really understand how he was able to do that. And the records I'm finding are not very concise. Nobody's mentioning him joining the 9th Michigan. And we do know that the captain, or they don't identify him as a captain, they call him a trooper. His name was William H.S. Banks. He got with Horton, and he might have read some of his earlier works. I don't know. I can't find that out. But he did have another book writing with Horton after the war. It was called The Naked Genius, and it talks about the war years with Horton. But after that, Horton again continued on, as we mentioned, went up to Philadelphia in 1866. And the story goes there that he continued to write and did poetry, talking about how the racism was rampant up there in Philadelphia. We mentioned that last week. But some of the things that we didn't mention about was the other end of the story here. We keep talking about these abolitionists. Oh, how great the abolitionists were. Oh, my goodness, the Massachusetts abolitionists. How they just love black folks. They just love black. We got to free them all. They got to free. Of course, there was a little caveat to that. We want to free them so we can ship them back to Africa or Liberia in many cases. So I want to dwell on that a little bit more tonight, that Moses has led us forward to understanding a little bit more about the thought of free black Southerners. I'm going to say that again. Free black Southerners. And we know we actually have the census of 1860. In all southern cities and all southern states, we had free men of color. And these were citizens. And in Virginia, for instance, you had over 60,000. In North Carolina, you had over 40,000. These were free men of color. And they were citizens of the United States. Now, you would think, well, they're probably for the abolitionists too. Well, they kind of were, they kind of weren't. Because the abolitionists preached one thing and did another. The one thing that the free black men of the South were totally against the abolitionists was this notion that somehow black folks, all black folks, have to be shipped back to Africa. They didn't like that very much. In fact, that's where we're going to kind of get here with this little education about this. Frederick Douglass, as you all know, was a great abolitionist, great spokesman, all that kind of stuff, friend of Abraham Lincoln, all this kind of stuff. All this was yada, yada, yada. It's all great history. However, Frederick Douglass was an outspoken opponent of the American Colonization Society. Remember we talked about that? Which was the proposal for African American immigration back to Africa. And he felt that the American black were entitled to equality in their own country of origin, i.e. the United States or the South. So you abolitionists want to sit there and scream and moan and all this kind of stuff about how some flags affect you and how racist this, racist that. You are the racist. I'm not a Southerner who wants to ship black people back to Africa. In fact, that's absurd. If you want somebody to be an American, then they're your neighbor. They are part of your community. You want to have them prosper as well as you prosper. But you liberals don't want to do that. You want to send people back to some other imaginary place. Utopia, I guess you want to send them back to, as you want to send us all to utopia. You liberals are so wrong. You sit there and use someone like Mr. Horton, a great Southerner, and you want to ship him out of the country. Now, Frederick Douglass actually was appalled at that idea of shipping black Americans out of the country. He felt, and did so in his own newspapers, that he actually was had his own newspaper and other papers of the time, where the free blacks were abhorred at what you abolitionists were wanting to do. And Horton was one of the people who actually joined up with you abolitionists up in Massachusetts. And he went along with this thing. He's supposed to go to Liberia. So he actually was, as I said before, the poster child for the Liberia movement, which ultimately moved about 13,000 blacks out of the country back to Liberia. That's a whole nother story. And most people would say that it didn't work very well. You can talk from the Liberian perspective. They were not very welcoming to the American blacks who had been gone for generations. I mean, it'd be the same thing with me right now. My folks have been in this country since 1741, okay? They were German. They lived in Germany, they lived in Bavaria, et cetera, et cetera. I would no more know how to act in Germany today because I'm not German, I'm an American. I have nothing to do with Germany. It's the same thing when you're talking about whether they just ship it back to Africa. That is racism in itself. What, black people cannot be Americans? That doesn't make sense. I think black Americans are a great asset to this country, and Southern people believe that. It's you liberals that do not believe that. I also want to read a little quote here from a paper. We were going to post this, and I think this would probably be one of those things you got to go on the internet and go to this post, because it's an opposition for the blacks who were writing in 1832 about the American Colonization Society. And this is a letter to them. And I'm not going to read the whole letter, but I'm going to read this one thing that says, resolved that we view the efforts made by the American Colonization Society entirely gratuitous and unasked for by us. In other words, we're saying, us free black folks, we're not asking for y'all to do this. And moreover, it's our bound duty that if we do want to move out of the country back to Africa, we'll let you know. This is a great letter. Y'all are going to get a kick out of this. And this was something that we have come across, the liberal hypocrisy that somehow black people are only supposed to be in Africa. That doesn't make sense. Black people are Americans. Period. They're Americans. What do you not get in your head? They happen to be Americans. Yeah, their skin pigment is a little bit different than mine, and maybe a little bit different than someone from Asia, or maybe somebody from South America, but they are still Americans. And that is the lesson I want y'all to understand about this. Mr. Moses, or Horton, Moses Horton, has led us to the fact that the hypocrisy of these Carolina liberals, who they want to glorify this man, but as I've told you last time, they lost him. We don't know where the guy is buried. We don't know anything about his children. We know the names of his children. He actually has two children. One of them was named Freedom. The other child was named Rudy. And we don't know his wife's name. Little else is known about the family. Why is that? Why aren't you actually telling the story of the man instead of using him as a poster child for your abolitionists who wanted to ship people out of the country? I can't get my head wrapped around that. Why would you say he was a brilliant man writing poetry as a Southerner, and he's so good, we're so happy with him, we don't want to live with him? That's where you liberals are, is you want to distort life. You destroy life and distort life. It's just terrible what you people do. This man should be a hero of the South. In fact, I have a proposal. It's just me saying this is a proposal. I would think that I would be 100% behind the people of Chatham County if they wanted to erect a monument to George Moses Horton on the county square. Put it on the south side of the square, on the other side of the Confederate soldier. You don't need to tear the Confederate soldiers down. Why don't you put the Horton statue up there? Why haven't you done that yet? Why hasn't that been done? Why can you people not build instead of destroy? I'd be 100% behind raising money to put a statue to honor Mr. Morton, a Chatham County hero from the South. A Chatham County hero who took himself out of slavery and made himself a man who the world actually, I guess I would say the world, I know his poetry is available all over the world now, but even at that time he was international. So we would actually celebrate this man in Chatham County. Another reason that Chatham County is a great historical place to be. You don't need to tear down the Confederate monument to put one up to him. Why don't you put one up? You want to do stuff, liberals. You want to do stuff. Okay, here's something to do. We will help you raise money, put a statue of him. It's not that hard to do. We can do it. If you want to sit there and complain about tearing down statues and getting rid of flags because it's an insult or something, whatever, Mr. Horton rode with the Union Cavalry through North Carolina. For whatever reason, I cannot find out, they allowed him to do that. Because if you remember, the same Union Cavalry coming out of Georgia with Sherman were actually drowning black people who were trying to follow them out of Georgia into freedom. So, okay, so it's kind of it's a historical anomaly that I can't find yet. I'm not finding in the records yet. I'm going to have to do more research. How this man was able to ride with the Union Cavalry, the 9th Michigan. I'm not going to speculate. I don't know why, but he definitely did ride with them. And through the latter part of the war, he was probably only with them for a couple of months as they came into North Carolina, because as you know, the war ended. In fact, the 9th Michigan was disbanded in 1865 in Concord, North Carolina. So it was not a long-term situation where Mr. Horton was with them, but he was definitely with them. And one of the officers actually ended up writing a co-book with him after the war. So I want to encourage you all to realize that this is a fight of people who want to produce hate. That's all you liberals are doing in Chatham County. Hate. That's all you know. That's all you do is hate. Instead of building up, instead of taking a great American and putting a monument to him and telling the children what a great man he was. And during the antebellum South, this man was able to make money as a slave, and he did so. We should celebrate this. But what we don't want to celebrate is the use of this man to where you liberals took him somewhere in Philadelphia. We don't know where he is. We don't know where. We cannot go put flowers on his grave. Now, let's turn that back around. That's the same thing. There's a reason that we put a Chatham County statue of Confederate soldiers up, because we couldn't put flowers on some of these men's graves. You understand that? We could not put flowers on the dead because we didn't know where they were buried. They were buried in fields all over the South, dead. Now, let's reverse that. We don't know where Mr. Horton is, so we don't have a place where we can go and put flowers to celebrate him and honor him. So I say let's put a statue up in Chatham County of Mr. Horton so we can lay flowers and wreaths and celebrate this man's life. It has a closure to it because, like you said, you Yankees lost him after the war. I don't know what you did with him, but you lost him. But we could actually resurrect and have him still honored in Chatham County. So with that, I'm going to end this, and we'll talk to y'all later. Bye-bye.